Discovered. 300K transformed my life. My son's shocking question left us humbled and inspiring. Amy stared blankly at the magazine Jake was flipping through. The glossy pages depicting vacations filled with laughter and sun-soaked beaches. Mom, why don't we have a family vacation like everyone else? The question pierced through the quiet evening like a lightning bolt. It echoed in her heart, weighing heavy with implications she couldn't shake off. Amy, in her late 30s, had done her best to shield Jake from the financial strain that accompanied her job as a dental hygienist in their small Midwestern town, compensating for years of struggle alongside a mix of absence and neglect from her estranged father. She felt the edges of his disenchantment in that moment, a stark reminder of just how far their realities diverged from his dreams. Digging her nails into her palm, she thought of the bills piling up on the counter, and Jake's worn sneakers. His need for new things continually outpaced her ability to provide. What looked like a simple question held an abyss of longing and expectation, and the truth tugged at her insides. Her son was perceptive, and his innocent inquiries often felt like daggers. The weight of relentless underemployment, coupled with chronic exhaustion, bore heavily on her. Before she knew it, an unexpected windfall came crashing into their lives. $300,000 from her estranged father's inheritance. At first, Amy's imagination whirled with fantasies of what the money could do. Brighter prospects for Jake, with private school, new equipment for his passions, or perhaps that dream vacation. Yet, in that stark reality shadowed by her tumultuous childhood, the money felt burdensome, a legacy of chaos tethered to unfulfilled promises. The thought alone caused her muscles to tense as she wrestled with the paradox of wealth. It seemed both a key to her limits and a dark portrait of past betrayals. As hours turned into restless nights, anxiety seeped in along with guilt's icy fingers. She thought of how her father's absence had carved cracks in her identity. Instead of running from her struggles or simply shielding them with new purchases, what if she could reshape the narrative? What if that money could heal, make a difference for other families grappling with the same burdens? As she explored ideas to uplift the community, she met waves of skepticism from those around her, whispers swirling like ghosts from a past she thought she'd buried. Each meeting chipped away at her resolve, leaving her dizzy with despair. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But just as she and Jake began visualizing the hopeful future they could create together, an anonymous letter arrived at their cramped home. The details within it revealed a startling piece of her father's past secrets she had never known, inviting her own personal anguish and a confrontation with the shadow of his legacy. A weight heavier than the sum of its parts hung vertically in the air like a dark cloud, and Amy felt her heart race as she dissected the implications. Who was she to carry the burden of choices she never made? The truth left her shocked, destabilized between a desperate need to escape the family history and a drive to define their own destiny. She stood at the precipice, longing to leap but fearful of the fall. Would her father's choices truly shape their future? Or could she carve out a new legacy colored with love and service? Amy's fingers trembled as she folded the letter back into its envelope, her breath shallow. Questions spiraled in her mind, each one gnawing at her sense of self-worth. The revelation of her father's hidden life and existence filled with mistakes, betrayals, and choices she had yet to fully grasp overwhelmed her. How could she reconcile his choices with the person she aspired to be? Just when she believed she could mold both a brighter future and a compassionate legacy, this discovery threatened to corrode her determination. She glanced at Jake, who was engrossed in his video games, blissfully unaware of the maelstrom raging just beneath the surface of their lives. Could she protect him from the shadows of the past while striving to carve out something bright and meaningful? The question echoed within her, a relentless reminder of her dual responsibility as a mother and an individual. The next day, she found herself at the local coffee shop, sitting with her friend Lisa. As the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her, Amy decided it was time to share the weight she had been carrying. I received a letter from my father, she confessed, her voice quaking. Lisa looked up, the concern evident in her eyes. What did it say? With a shaky exhale, Amy relayed the letter's contents, noting Lisa's growing frown. He wasn't the man I thought he was. I don't think I can forgive him, but I also don't want his past to define my future. The money feels tainted now. What if I inherit his flaws? Lisa's gaze softened. You're not him, Amy. You have the chance to break that cycle. Think about what you want from this inheritance. It can be a tool for good, maybe even the change you've been yearning for. But you have to confront the truth first. Confronting that truth became Amy's singular focus. She immersed herself in learning about her father's life through the snippets others shared, and the uncomfortable realizations she faced. There were countless moments in his life that mirrored her own struggles, but she began to see the patterns not as just genetics or fate, but as choices. Every decision could be a pivot point. Individuals held the power to redefine their stories. With each revelation, Amy gained confidence. She envisioned arranging workshops to assist single mothers, providing them with resources to improve their livelihood and personal skills, sharing her journey as a template for empowerment. It was a risky proposal, especially faced with the skepticism of the tight-knit community. Yet she felt a resilience brewing within her, propelling her to face detractors not just head-on, but with grace and assurance. She began drafting a proposal seeking local sponsorship for the workshops, pouring her efforts into articulating her vision, a vision that painted the community in colors of hope and recovery. With newfound clarity, she dedicated evenings to studying grant applications and the operational needs of a nonprofit. The more she immersed herself in her mission, the more she recognized not just her competencies, but also her desire to inspire others as she had never envisioned before. But just as enthusiasm enveloped her, an unexpected call froze her mid-stride. It was an attorney named Chris, representing her father's estate, requesting a meeting. Shock rippled through her. What more could be unearthed? As she brushed her fingers against the stack of papers she was preparing, uncertainty crept back in. Would this meeting empower her mission or deflate her ambitions? With a decisive breath, she realized that confronting her father's deceptions, even in death, was essential if she wanted to build a bridge from the past toward a future without regret. The time had come to face the truth she both feared and longed for. Would she reclaim her narrative, or be pulled under by what lay beneath the surface? The air in the small attorney's office felt stale, the shadows cast by the afternoon sun creating an atmosphere heavy with anticipation. Amy sat across from Chris, the attorney, her heart hammering in her chest. Each second seemed to stretch into eternity as she grappled with the weight of the unfolding reality. Conflicting emotions flickered within her: fear of the unknown, and determination to overcome. "Thank you for coming in, Amy," Chris began, glancing at the documents laid out before them as though they held the secrets of the universe. "I know this isn't easy, but I believe it's imperative we address your father's estate and the implications tied to it." His words echoed in her mind, feelings of dread entwining with insistent curiosity. "Can you just tell me what's at stake?" Amy pressed, feeling an urgency she couldn't shake. The promise of clarity felt like standing on the edge of a precipice, just waiting for the push. Chris took a deep breath and leaned forward slightly. "Your father left a sizable inheritance, approximately $300,000. However, there's a stipulation: your acceptance of these funds will require you to engage with the conditions outlined in his will. It's complex." Complex. The word resonated with her past, hinting at the tangled web her father had left behind. What kind of conditions? Her voice barely masked the tremor of growing anxiety. She sensed the shadows of his decisions creeping back into her life as tangible threats. Your father wished to fund a scholarship in his name despite his mistakes. He hoped to make amends through education, Chris elaborated. However, he asked that the first scholarship be awarded to a single mother. You would need to oversee this program, ensuring it aligns with his vision. Amy's breath caught in her throat. A noble gesture buried beneath the weight of his abandonment. Could she move past the shame associated with her father, repurpose his legacy for good? She felt the tug of ambivalence, battling the recognition of the opportunity against the desires for distance from his past. I don't want his name attached to my work, Amy stated, her voice laced with resolve. How do I know this isn't just a way to absolve him of his sins? Chris regarded her with an understanding gaze. That's a choice only you can make. This inheritance could offer you a means to achieve the goals you've been working towards. It could empower you, or it could keep you tethered to his mistakes. It's a critical decision surrounding your own values and aspirations. The weight of his words pressed down on her, merging with the memory of the letter she had read. What path would she choose, one tangled with her father's endeavors or one boldly forged by her own? Determinately, Amy recalled her passion for helping single mothers. Her vision crystallized through the lens of her journey. If I take this on, I will do it my way. I'll need to rewrite that narrative and ensure it serves as a tool of empowerment, not just for me but for others struggling like I have. Then you have the potential to redefine the legacy that comes with this inheritance, Chris affirmed. It's not about him. It's about what you choose to be. As the meeting drew to a close and she left the office, Amy felt a flicker of hope begin to blossom, tempered by the unknown. The weight of her father's actions still lingered, yet the ability to catalyze change echoed strongly within her. Later that evening, as she prepared dinner and Jake regaled her with tales from school, a question slipped from his lips, innocent yet striking. Mom, do you think you'll ever be proud of Grandpa? Amy paused, the question slamming against her conscience. The child's perspective, not tainted by the past, shone a light on the cluttered pathways of her heart. With newfound resolve, she imagined how to answer, not just for Jake, but for herself. The clock ticked away the seconds, each tick drawing her closer to a decision that felt momentous. Could she embrace a legacy her father attempted to redeem and craft her own identity from it? The shadows of history still hovered, but maybe that was the key to breaking free from their oppressive grip. She inhaled deeply, her task sharpening into view. It wouldn't just be a workshop but a scholarship program, infusing strength into the lives of those who came after her. Yet standing on the threshold of this decision filled her with uncertainty. What if she failed? What if the past indeed consumed her? But sitting beside her was Jake, lighting up the room with his words, reaffirming the necessity of pressing forward. Determination surged through her. She would not back down. Her world was shifting, and the stakes were higher than before. The next steps were unclear, but one thing became indisputable: reinvention lay ahead. As she held her son's gaze, an unexpected truth unfolded. Perhaps this was her moment of truth, one that awaited her embrace, regardless of the shadows left behind. But the unanswered questions piled on, like bricks, demanding her response. Would she find the courage to confront and redirect her father's legacy? Or would she be content to let the past dictate the narrative? As dawn broke, a new layer of determination rose within Amy. The pale light filtered through the kitchen window, casting stripes across the floor. She moved through her morning routine like clockwork, but a storm churned in her mind. The discussion with Chris echoed, and the enormity of her father's legacy pressed on her shoulders. She took a moment, letting her hands rest on the countertop, acknowledging that her choices held the power to redefine everything. What will I do? She whispered, eyes darting around the kitchen, as if searching for an answer among the dishes or the flickering handler of the coffee pot. This was about more than money. It was about identity and the kind of human she wanted to be. The scholarship presented an opportunity for her to forge something meaningful. Yet every fiber of her being invoked trepidation. 1,000 potential excuses rose to the surface, emboldened by her worries. But another thought broke through, sharp as glass. What if she channeled her frustrations into action? After a restless night plagued by uncertainty, Amy sat down with her laptop, fingers poised over the keys. What if she created the scholarship to empower women just like herself, those navigating the complexities of motherhood and financial hardship? She could design workshops, provide counseling, and even offer support networks. This was her chance to craft a program that honored her struggles, devoid of her father's shadow. With each keystroke, her vision crystallized, but a nagging voice whispered in the recesses of her mind: was this truly her mission, or merely an effort to escape the history her father had carved? Before she could bury herself in self-doubt, however, she took a deep breath and forced herself to confront the niggling fears head-on. There was an opportunity to affirm her choices, reclaim her narrative. Then a thought struck her with sudden clarity. Would she lose her voice in the guise of honoring his? The real test lay not in rejecting him, but in reshaping their shared history. She would navigate the complexities, the contradictions, and emerge stronger. Jake came bustling into the room, his innocent charm dispelling her worries, if only for a moment. "Mom, can I help with breakfast?" he asked, a hopeful smile lighting up his face. His optimism resonated like a beacon, illuminating her burgeoning resolve. "Of course, buddy. Let us make something special." As they cooked together, she explained her developing idea about the scholarship, her enthusiasm bursting through like sunbeams breaking clouds. "It's going to be a program just for single moms, helping them get back on their feet," she said, gauging his reaction. "That's cool, Mom. Can we have a party when it's done?" Jake's excitement echoed in her chest, reminding her of the very reason she was taking on this monumental task, changing lives, including her own and Jake's. "Yes, we can celebrate," she laughed, imagining the launch party, filled with stories of resilience and shared joy. With every moment spent strategizing their dinner plans, Amy felt alive, almost giddy. Ideas surged forth. She outlined the application process, rearrange her professional responsibilities, and create a comprehensive calendar of events. Each decision became a stepping stone toward the unknown but promising future. Yet, there was a lingering ache deeper than mere apprehension. She questioned if she possessed the skills to succeed. Could she devote herself entirely to this mission and bear the weight of failure? Sipping her coffee, she leaned back against the counter, heart racing again with the near unbearable pressure of ambition and expectation. "Deep breaths, Amy. This is your moment to climb, to not just survive but thrive." As the realization set in, she smiled. Hours cascaded by rapidly. She lost track of time. With newfound clarity, Amy opened a browser and searched fundraising for scholarships, allowing the excitement of her vision to propel her forwards. How would she run the campaign? Who could she draw strength from? Support was critical, and it might come from unexpected places. Suddenly, an eerie thought crossed her mind: who truly understood the shadows she lived with? The notion ignited a thread of resolve. She would reach out to others who shared her journey. Creating a community with similar stories might open doors she hadn't yet imagined. If they could battle their demons, perhaps she could too. Looking at her reflection in the kitchen window, Amy saw an unfamiliar face emerge, unafraid and determined. But behind that determination lay the disquieting reminder of her father's influence. Was she merely recycling his intentions? Ambivalence loomed again, but she brushed it aside, focusing on the woman she was building from the ashes of family pain. The pendulum of legacy swung between obligation and opportunity, and Amy resolved to push through every fear, slowly steering herself toward clarity and purpose. But then, nails on a chalkboard. What if her efforts led back to her father's narrative of failure? She could feel the past tightening its grip, taunting her with whispers of doubt as the sun dipped behind the horizon, darkening the kitchen. The room felt stifled. The weight accelerated her heartbeat. If she was to confront her father's legacy, could she face him in forgiveness, questioning her own resolve to be the person he never managed to be? As she plunged deeper into her purpose, an unexpected tension hung in the air, demanding her relentless attention. Would she emerge triumphant? Or would the shadows of her father's choices shadow her vision? The next challenge was clear: finding her voice in his silence while forging a path into the future. It was time to confront the echoes of the past, and decide whose legacy she truly wanted to uphold. With the ghost of her father lingering close, Amy spent the following days wrapped in a whirlwind of planning and uncertainty. It felt as if she was standing at the very edge of a precipice, peering into an abyss that held both promise and peril. Each glance at her laptop brought a conflicting surge of exhilaration and dread. The work ahead seemed monumental, yet she felt compelled to push forward. Conversations with other single mothers in her community grew increasingly vital. Amy had started attending local meetups, sharing troubling stories of hardship merely to feel seen. In these gatherings, she discovered layers of connection amidst shared struggles: women recounting tales of juggling bills, caretaking burdens, and the relentless pursuit of independence that weighed heavily on their shoulders. Each shared experience opened doors to resilience, building a collective narrative she desperately craved. Have you ever thought about starting a support group? One mother suggested during a candid evening of piecing together their stories. The idea hung in the air like mist, thick, almost palpable. Amy could feel the flicker of a new ambition stirring in her chest. What if she could create not just a scholarship, but a powerful network of support that bridged the gap between aspiration and ability? Every conversation added another brushstroke to a picture that was slowly coming into focus. She envisioned a multifaceted initiative, a program offering workshops on financial literacy, emotional wellness, and practical life skills tailored for women navigating similar struggles. The mere thought sent her racing to the nearest coffee shop, her notebook flying open around the clatter of cups and chatter of patrons. Inhaling the rich aroma of brew, Amy quickly jotted down notes, each point fueling her ambition. But just as her excitement swelled, the old doubts crept back in like dark clouds at the horizon. What made her think she could lead this? Where would she find the resources? And there it was, the nagging doubt, the familiar flares of insecurity that had haunted her for years. "Excuse me, are you okay?" A soft voice broke her concentration. A woman, likely in her late 40s, stood beside her table. Caught off guard, Amy blinked, as if she had been disturbed from a dream. "Sorry, I was just thinking," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You looked mighty deep in thought. I used to be just like you, drowning in ideas but struggling to take the plunge," the woman said, her eyes twinkling with knowing. "I'm Lisa, by the way." Their conversation ebbed and flowed easily, and Amy found solace in their shared experiences. Lisa had successfully launched a nonprofit that offered coaching to economically disadvantaged women. Hearing her story ignited a fire within Amy, illuminating a path she hadn't fully considered before. Start small. Maybe you don't need everything figured out right now. There's beauty in the chaos of starting, Lisa advised, her words a salve to Amy as persisting doubts. Yet as the daylight waned, Amy couldn't shake the impending weight on her heart. Lisa's words were encouraging, but the shadows of her father felt impenetrable, teasing out insecurities she couldn't quite shake loose. That night, after Jake had fallen asleep, Amy sat in the darkness, wrestling with the fear of failure. Silence hung heavy around her. Would she ultimately be compared to her father's legacy, perceived as another misstep? The emotional turmoil ignited a fierce determination. If she was to truly rise, she would need to confront this haunting perception directly. In the solitary quiet, she whispered to herself, "This is my path." It was a quiet declaration, one that echoed softly against the encroaching doubts. She checked her reflection in the kitchen window. There was strength nestled beneath uncertainty, a softness laced with grit. The next day, emboldened by her new conviction, Amy reached out on social media to women who might be willing to share their stories publicly, stories that might inspire others while helping her shape the initiative she envisioned. She crafted post after post, inviting them to join in an honest conversation. The response was overwhelming, a beautiful tapestry of shared struggles and aspirations woven together. But as momentum built, so did an unsettling thought. What if her motives were misconstrued? Would her efforts be labeled self-serving? The looming confrontation with her father's legacy remained unaddressed, drawing an invisible line between who she was and who she was trying to become. As Amy plunged forward, intent on nurturing this budding support network, the shadows flickered but didn't yet recede completely. She would need to navigate this growing complexity while simultaneously fortifying her own identity. And in that crucible of self-discovery, the question hung heavy. Would she ever be able to claim her own narrative, or would she remain shackled under the weight of her father's shadow? Resolution lay just beyond her grasp, but with each step forward came new revelations. She could feel it in her bones, the kind of change that not only sought to uplift others, but could also release her from the bonds of her past. Yet the most poignant realization fluttered through her mind as she lay in bed that night. The journey ahead was laden with uncertainty, but perhaps in unraveling these tangled emotions, she might finally confront not just her father's legacy, but the essence of who she really wanted to be. Before surrendering to sleep, a singular thought pierced the darkness. The time had come to face the echoes of her past head-on and redefine what legacy truly meant. The following morning wrapped Amy in an invigorating clarity, the air crisp as she carved a path through her to-do list. Realizing that whether she could lead and inspire hinged on how she defined herself, she decided today would be about action, a tangible step toward her envisioned initiative. After breakfast, Amy gathered some papers, her computer, and a few well-worn but motivating books. She felt a surge of resolve as she set a workspace within her cramped living room. The clutter of everyday life faded as her focus honed in on the task at hand. Each page she turned ignited memories, not of failures or disappointments, but of possibilities nestled within her reach. She initiated the day with an ambitious goal, outlining not just a curriculum, but identifying potential workshops and speakers that could bring value. She started to list subjects: financial literacy, emotional wellness, self-esteem building. The words flowed onto the page with surprising ease, a reflection of her burgeoning conviction. But as Amy scribbled, that shadowy doubt resurfaced. Who was she to teach others? Her own experience was riddled with insecurity and missteps. A fleeting thought crossed her mind: why would anyone listen to her? That momentary glimmer of self-derision was like a rubber band stretched too far, and it snapped back, nearly pulling her away from her ambition. Stop doubting, she muttered, a fierce determination shining through the false constraints. The late-night self-reflection echoed in her thoughts. Her path was uniquely hers. With renewed determination, Amy drafted a short email to Lisa, expressing eagerness to collaborate in the conception of the initiative. They had agreed to meet at the coffee shop again, a sacred space where her fears had mingled with inspiration. While awaiting Lisa's reply, she turned her attention toward connecting with potential speakers via social media, emboldened by the earlier engagement she had received in her posts. What is the worst that could happen? She asked herself, half questioning, half insisting. Each outreach was a small gasp of courage, but one particularly took her breath away. A local financial advisor responded affirmatively to her inquiry about giving a workshop. His words were warm and encouraging, and he emphasized how important financial education could be for single mothers. Amy's heart raced. A veritable door had swung open, revealing a path she had only dared to dream of. But even as excitement surged, thoughts spiraled back inward. A haunting echo of her father resounded. What will he think of this? Paralyzing fear clutched her heart briefly. Would he dismiss her efforts as trivial, laughable? The internal struggle conflicted with her current belief that this was her moment. But the shadow of paternal expectations lingered behind her ambitions like a ghost unwilling to scatter. Just as her thoughts became overwhelming, Jake bounded into the room, his young face bright with unrestrained delight. "Mom, I have a question." Caught off guard, she pivoted her attention. "What's up, buddy? What makes a person brave?" he asked, his innocent curiosity striking a chord deep within her. His question pulled her from the dark echoes of her doubts, redirecting her focus toward his wide-eyed innocence. "Bravery is when you feel scared but do something anyway," she mused, instinctively pulling him into a warm embrace. "Like you?" He beamed, and there it was, a mirror reflecting how he already perceived her. In that moment, she realized the importance of not only carving her own path for herself, but for Jake as well. What legacy was she building for him, if not a testament of resilience, courage, and self-discovery? Determined to instill that sense of bravery, Amy recognized that it was time to translate her growing initiative ideas into tangible actions, igniting a small ember of hope into a fire of purpose. But looming questions awaited her. Facing her father's shadow felt inevitable, like a storm that would have to be weathered head-on. The thought stirred a new fear that twisted in her stomach. Would he validate her journey, or would it only amplify her insecurities? As she paced through her thoughts, the momentum she had gained wasn't simply about building a support system. It was about redefining herself apart from parental expectations, a journey demanding she summon all her courage. The clock ticked steadily, but Amy found herself at a crossroads instead. Would she explore this personal territory of courage, by confronting her father within, and claiming her narrative? The weight loomed heavily as she bit her lip, preservation and peril standing hand in hand. Walking forward was essential, but the looming confrontation with her lineage felt inescapable. And just like that, with Jake's innocent question hanging heavily in the air, she wondered if she was indeed brave enough to unravel who she truly was, unshackling her identity from the shadows of the past. The morning sun spilled into Amy's living room, casting warm rays on the half-finished outline she had written the day before. The light seemed to align with her newfound sense of purpose, a stark contrast to the lingering shadows of self-doubt that still flickered at the edges of her mind. As she sipped her coffee, a determined thought rippled through her. This was not merely about her but also about setting an example for Jake, showing him how to fight through fear. With fresh resolve, she opened her laptop and searched for more financial advisors willing to contribute. Each name she came across felt like another step closer to solidifying her vision. She meticulously crafted her outreach messages, emphasizing the need for positive role models in her community. The more she wrote, the more she felt like a catalyst for change rather than an imposter. Once her emails were drafted and ready to send, she paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Her reflection stared back at her through the screen. This version was emerging, one that had been hidden by layers of insecurity. Who would have thought that a small conversation with Jake would ignite this fire? Bravery is not the absence of fear, but the determination to act in spite of it, she reminded herself. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Lisa, confirming their meeting for later that afternoon. Excitement fluttered through Amy. Connecting with Lisa meant sharing ideas with someone who understood the suffocating pressures of expectation. Her pulse quickened at the thought of their discussion, a warm wave washing over the doubts that had kept her anchored. Perhaps together they could fill in the gaps of her initiative and bring it to life. As she prepared for their meeting, Amy reflected on her father's impending visit. He was scheduled to drop by tomorrow, and she hadn't broken any news to him yet. What if he scoffed at her plans? The anxiety crept back. Would she ever be free of his judgment? But in that moment of fear, she saw Jake's bright eyes again, shining with admiration and pride. Wasn't this the essence of bravery, pushing forward for the ones we love? She needed to confront her father, to reclaim her narrative and demonstrate strength, but she questioned her ability to remain resolute in that moment. The strength she had sought temporarily escaped her. With determination growing inside her, she completed her to-do list with vigorous energy. The ideas for workshops molded in her mind felt eclectic yet cohesive. As she opened a blank document, she envisioned what a potential presentation might look like, outlining key points about financial literacy tailored for single mothers. Teaching was no longer a distant dream. It was a responsibility, one she could shoulder for herself and for those who looked to her for guidance. Suddenly, a psychological epiphany struck. She realized the workshops weren't just about empowerment. They were also an act of defiance against the doubts rooted in her past. The irony wasn't lost on her. By helping others, she was saving herself. With her heart pounding with anticipation, Amy decided it was time to take the next step. She would reach out to the unfinished list of speakers. Each message sent an act of solidarity with her decision to embrace both her fears and her aspirations. As she hit send on the last email, a rush of exhilaration coursed through her veins. The clock chimed, signaling it was time to head out for her meeting with Lisa. As she walked toward the door, Jake tugged at her pant leg, looking up with sincere curiosity. "Mom, are you going to be brave today?" His eyes, reflecting innocence, held the weight of her world. She knelt down to his level, brushing a thumb across his cheek. "I think I am, buddy. And I hope you will be too." Stepping outside, Amy was flooded with the clarity of purpose. But the raw, cold truth loomed like a specter. Her day was just beginning, and soon she would find herself face to face with her father. Was she ready to redefine her identity, or would the past continue to bind her? The question lingered, vibrating with the tension of possibility. As she made her way to the coffee shop, heart racing for the challenges and revelations that awaited her. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped Amy as she entered the cafe, but the comfort of the space did little to quell the storm in her stomach. Each step toward the meeting table felt heavier, as if burdened by the weight of unspoken truths and expectations. She spotted Lisa seated, absently stirring her drink, a mid-30s woman with an infectious energy that Amy had always admired. "Hey there," Lisa greeted with a bright smile, seemingly at ease in the busy environment. Amy forced a smile back, but the knots in her stomach tightened further as she took her seat. "Thanks for meeting with me on such short notice," Amy said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Of course. I'm always here to help." So tell me about your ideas, Lisa prompted, leaning forward with genuine interest. As Amy launched into her vision for the financial literacy workshops, she felt the familiar blend of excitement and trepidation. Each point she articulated was colored with doubt. What if it fell flat? What if no one showed up? That creeping voice whispered reminders of her past failures, but she pushed against it. Talking to Lisa invigorated her conviction. She needed to see this through, for herself and for Jake. The goal is to empower single mothers like myself, to give them the tools to manage their finances, navigate loans, even build savings, Amy explained. The more she spoke, the clearer her ideas became, as if each word was chiseling away the ingrained fears that had held her captive. Lisa's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. I love it. You're going to make such a difference. Encouraged, Amy continued, diving deeper into her content ideas, the workshop structure, and even potential speakers. But as Lisa listened intently, Amy felt a pang of fear. What would happen when she presented her plans to her father? Would he listen and understand or cast doubt like he always had? You know, Amy, Lisa interjected, clear insight behind her casual tone. You seem like you're on the brink of something massive, not just professionally but personally. What is stopping you from stepping into that next level? The moment hung between them, heavy with unasked questions. Amy felt a flicker of vulnerability. Honestly, I'm terrified of what my dad will think. Why does it matter? Lisa questioned gently. The inquiry landed like a bolt of lightning. It stung, and Amy's heart raced with recognition. This wasn't merely about her father's opinion. It was about her own fear of rejection, the deep-seated need for validation she had carried throughout her life. I guess it's ingrained in me. His approval means I'm doing it right, Amy admitted, feeling a tear threaten to break free. You need to reframe that, Lisa replied, her voice steady and firm. This isn't about him. This is about you. The life you want, the example you want to set for Jake. Your narrative matters. Don't let his expectations dictate yours. Amy's breath hitched. The power of that statement flooded her with clarity and rebellion. She realized she had to reclaim her narrative as her own, untainted by her father's skepticism. As their conversation shifted back to practicalities, she felt a surge of empowerment. Wouldn't she want Jake to pursue his dreams regardless of external pressures? If she didn't confront her past, she risked repeating the cycle of fear with him. By the time they concluded their meeting, the initial anxiety that plagued Amy morphed into an eager anticipation. Lisa's validation was a spark. Now Amy just needed to fan that flame into a roaring fire. As Amy walked home, she practiced her words for her father in her head. What would she say when he asked about her ambitions? How could she express the magnitude of what this opportunity represented to her? Hidden within this confrontation was an opportunity, a crossroads between fear and liberation. Upon arriving home, Amy found Jake constructing a makeshift fort out of pillows. His innocent smile lit up the room, a reminder of why she needed to act. Mom, are you busy? He asked as she set her bag down. Not too busy for you, she replied, crouching down to join him. Can I help you be brave today? He asked, eyes wide and earnest. His simple question sent waves of enchantment through her. He was already learning from her resilience. Amy's heart swelled, and in that moment, she knew this was a pivotal chapter not just for her, but for him too. Tonight was merely the beginning. The real test loomed on the horizon. Facing her father. Would she embrace the fear and stand firm in her truth? Or let it consume her? The suffocating question lingered in the air, pulsing with energy as they shared laughter amidst the makeshift fortress. Every moment counted, and soon, she would have to choose. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow through the windows, Amy's heart raced with anticipation. Tonight, she would confront her father, and every fiber of her being buzzed with uncertainty. Seated at the dinner table, she felt like an actor preparing to deliver her lines. The thought of his reaction pricked at her confidence like a needle, but she fought to maintain focus on the reason she was there. For yourself, for Jake. How was your day? She asked, suppressing the nerves that threatened to spill over. Same old, her father replied, his attention absorbed by a newspaper spread before him. When she caught a glimpse of his expression, She noticed an imperceptible shift. Was it disappointment? Or was he simply tired? The ambiguity gnawed at her. As they ate, Amy forced small talk, trying to find the right moment to steer the conversation toward her plans. Yet, each bite felt like an eternity, each chew a reminder of the weight she was carrying. She could almost hear Lisa's voice echoing in her mind, urging her to own her narrative, to shed the chains of uncertainty. Finally, with a steadying breath, she took the plunge. "Dad, I've been working on something significant." He looked up from his paper, curiosity flickering in his gaze. The knot in her stomach twisted as she continued. "I've been developing a series of financial literacy workshops for single mothers. It's about empowering them with the skills they need to manage their finances effectively." For a moment, silence reignited the air. She felt the tension build. His brow furrowed. A familiar look of skepticism etched across his features. "Workshops? Isn't that just another trend?" he replied dismissively. "You're aiming for something so ambitious? What makes you think people will show up?" Her pulse quickened, and Amy stood her ground, feeling the fire inside growing. "Because I believe in it, Dad. I recently met someone who has been incredibly supportive, and it energizes me to see the difference I can make in their lives like mine." "You mean Lisa?" he interrupted, his tone tinged with disapproval. "Yes, exactly. She believes in this project just as much as I do. It's not just about you thinking it's a good idea or not, it's about filling a gap in our community that I know exists." As Amy spoke, a kaleidoscope of emotions crashed within her: fear, determination, and resolve. This was it. She felt a crack in her father's protective armor, but the lurch in his expression indicated he wasn't sold yet. "You always were prone to these wild ideas," he muttered, casting a glance toward the window as if the evening sky could provide the answers he sought. "You should focus on something safer. These dreams can spin out of control." The burn of frustration stung her throat. She could feel the tears welling up, but she stood unwavering. "That's why I don't want to confine myself to what is safe anymore. I want to pursue what matters, what's necessary." Silence reigned once more. Tension swirled around the dinner table, thick and suffocating. Finally, he allowed the words to resonate in the air before giving a reluctant nod. "It's your life, Amy." The dismissal jolted her, but the weight of that slight acknowledgement set ideas alight in her mind. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. She needed to push through his reluctance like a wave against a rocky shore. Determined to reshape their dynamic, hers was a voice that deserved to be heard. As they finished dinner, the conversation slowly shifted, but the quiet battle waged on in her heart. Walking back to the living room, Amy was met with the sight of Jake, still immersed in his fort. The big-eyed hope in him made her heart twist. She wanted to embody the courage he thought she had. "Did you tell Grandpa your big news?" he asked, looking up hopefully. "Yes, I did. We talked about it," Amy replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "And was he happy?" Jake's innocence punctured her defenses. She hesitated. "Well, he's getting there." A sense of responsibility washed over her. Jake needed to see her fight. For what mattered, to watch his mother reclaim her narrative no matter the hesitations around her. That night, as she tucked him into bed, while he rested his head, Amy grasped hold of a newfound resolve, awakening a fire within her she hadn't known was possible. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but so would new opportunities. She had a story to tell and a chase to embrace. If she was going to lead the workshops, she needed to walk the walk. A glimmer of possibility filled her thoughts, a surprising realization of strength. Where Jake needed a brave mom, she was ready to show him that this was only the beginning. But with each half-formed plan swirling in her mind, she knew the true test wasn't merely to launch workshops. It was learning how to navigate her own emotional landscape without the influences of the past. Tomorrow brought commitment, and she was ready to take that step forward. How far could she push past her fears? In the quiet of the night, Amy became acutely aware that the journey ahead could reshape her entirely, but the question lingered. Could she carry Jake with her through it all? In the days that followed, Amy emerged from the shadows of self-doubt, her clarity sharpening with every sunrise. The conversation with her father had ignited a determination in her that she had not realized was buried deep inside. Each moment became a stepping stone, a commitment not only to her ambitions, but to creating a legacy in stark contrast to her father's. She envisioned the financial literacy workshops swelling into a full-fledged program, empowering single mothers like herself. Amy's ideas solidified into action. She assembled her notes, emails, and resources, meticulously curating a plan detailing not only the curriculum, but a clear strategy for funding and outreach. The fire in her belly convinced her she was capable of great things. As she engaged with local businesses and community members, her confidence radiated, and she found herself increasingly articulate about her goals. The tentative responses transformed into enthusiastic support. It turned out that the very community she initially feared would dismiss her resonated with her mission to drive change. Within weeks, she had a roster of respected local educators and financial advisors willing to participate. An unexpected shift occurred during a casual meeting with a local business leader, who was impressed by Amy's vision. After hearing her story, he offered to collaborate, providing not only financial backing but also access to a wider network of potential sponsors. This external validation fortified her mission, cementing the notion that her past did not dictate her future. Meanwhile, the scholarship from her father's inheritance began to crystallize into a real opportunity. She formulated it as a financial aid initiative specifically designated for single mothers aiming to pursue education or job training. It was critical that this scholarship carried her vision rather than bearing the weight of her father's choices. The more she advocated for the program, the more empowered she felt, soaring far beyond the confines of her previous limitations. The inaugural workshop came alive with excitement and anticipation. The day arrived, and her heart raced. As participants filtered into the venue, Amy's earlier fears melted into exhilaration. She witnessed mothers, young and old, gather with renewed hope, eager to learn and connect. Seeing their experience solidify her mission into something tangible transcended her initial anxiety about confrontation with her past. That night, as they shared stories and laughter, she was overwhelmed by a sense of fulfillment she had never felt before. Each testimony reinvigorated her spirit. Their journeys echoed her own struggles. Together they intertwined in a beautiful tapestry woven with resilience, strength, and growth. Amy's heart swelled with pride. She had not only conquered the ghosts of her past, but had also transformed her pain into purpose. The following week, she received an email from a local newspaper. They wanted to feature her story, reclaiming that narrative for herself publicly. This was validation in its truest form, and it buoyed her spirit. As she read the drafts exchanged with the editor, she felt her outline morph into something powerful. She was emerging as the voice of empowerment for others. Finally, she confronted her father once more to share the news of her success and scholarship launch, this time standing firmly in her identity. "I'm not just aiming for something, I'm doing it," she declared, holding her head high. The conversation unfolded differently. She reclaimed her narrative, no longer a victim of past burdens, but as a woman resolutely focused on her mission to uplift others. In the quiet moments following those dialogues, she realized the profound shift within her. Amy had not just built a program. She had created a foundation for her own identity, a mother, a leader, an empowered woman thousands of miles away from her former self. Amy's journey had forged solid confidence, unwavering competence, and an established position in her community. With each passing day, the landscape of her life sparkled with renewed vibrancy. The shadows of her father's past faded into echoes rather than chains weighing her down. As she stood before her workshop participants, she felt something extraordinary. The warm embrace of recognition, not just from within, but from those who sat before her, eyes shining with hope. They no longer saw a woman plagued by self-doubt. They saw a beacon of resilience, a tangible example of what was possible. Amy had conquered her past and channeled it into a legacy of her own, proof that individual transformation was not only achievable, but essential in breaking cycles of doubt and despair. Her moment had truly arrived, and Amy knew she would continue blazing paths for others to follow, embodying the strength she had once sought. She emerged whole and formidable, a testament to the power of resolve. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and let us know you love these incredible narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about Amy's transformative journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel inspired by tales of personal overcoming.